so we just wanna go to the new Top Gun movie starring our favorite Scientologist, Tom Cruise. Well, you see, that's a DoD project. And the internet you found this on, it's a DARPA project. And the technology you use to get to the movie theater, that's an Air Force project. So, what the hell is going on? Why has the military embedded itself in the culture and daily lives? What's going on? And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to unpack. We're going to look at the details of the military industrial complex. What it's doing, what it is really, and why it is. Like it is, what, you know? By the military industrial complex, we usually refer to the symbiotic relationship between the military, governments, policymakers, and the private defense sector. In the last 50 or so years, it had become a behemoth, immense, does everything and produces everything. Most major consumer technologies came out of defense budgets, and they made their way to the consumer market at some point, blurring the line between civilian life and a military way. This link, this connection between the military industrial complex and daily life is most clearly seen in the United States, where large parts of the economy are tied to defense contracts. And even in this financialized economy where everything is about stocks, you have pension funds, portfolios that depend on the wealth of weapon manufacturers, generating a system in which personal wealth depends upon global militarization. Europe is more restrained in this way, in this sense. But it also has its own gigantic weapons producers like BAE or Thales, reinforcing the interdependence between the economy and the military. The sprawling defense industry provides jobs, sustains technological development, and forms the backbone of many local communities, particularly in the United States, creating a dependency that is very difficult to untangle. Beyond economics, militarism has taken a firm hold of the cultural sphere, particularly in the way violence and war are represented in entertainment. Take Hollywood, for example. They have long ago partnered with the United States military forces in order to produce movies that cast the armed forces in a glorifying light. Films that showcase the might and precision of elite military units like Navy SEAL Team 6 after the killing of Osama bin Laden, portraying war as being clean, calculated, and morally justified. This is a selective portrayal, one which ignores the murkier sides like killing of innocent civilians, psychological trauma, or the ethical dilemmas that come with the use of force. What they do instead is to create a military ideal in which violence is necessary but also noble. Another thing, this partnership between Hollywood and the United States Armed Forces is a form of soft propaganda, one in which military interventions are straightforward and they appear as being a real solution to global problems. Video games too have become an influential part of the militarization of culture. Video games like Battlefield or Call of Duty offer more than just a thrilling experience of combat. They immerse players in highly realistic combat scenarios, portraying the soldier as the hero and war as an exciting action-packed adventure. The United States Army has been known to consult on video game production, ensuring accurate displays of weaponry, tactics, and military culture. In some cases, these games act as a tool for recruitment, subtly encouraging players to consider a career in the military. By glamorizing the experience of the soldier, they are exporting a view of war which is fun, exciting. It's entertainment, so it's not that serious, making war seem like it's normal. Movies about war and video games about war generate a culture in which war is more palpable, it's more desirable, and you should be accustomed to seeing because it's normal. After the Second World War, the United States was the major power that was not bombed, its industrial capacity was intact. So we need to look for the military industrial complex in this context, not as an organic development, but as a strategic consolidation of power by the US and its allies. Remember, after the war, the United States positioned itself as a global defender of democracy and capitalism, and with military might as the foundation for its geopolitical and economic dominance. These three words, military industrial complex, were first used by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1961 during his farewell speech. He warned against the forces of the military industrial complex, about their influence in the government, foreshadowing maybe how deeply entrenched these forces would get into the government. Companies like Lockheed Martin or Boeing emerged as giants from the Second World War. They continued to be fueled by the Cold War arms race, which sustained military expansion under the guise of countering Soviet influence. We can consider the late 1970s as being the start of the neoliberal era, which changed the dynamics of the military-industrial complex. Financialization, globalization, and deregulation, cornerstones of neoliberal policies, allowed military corporations to spread out far beyond their national borders. Firms like Raytheon became multinational entities, investing in a wide range of industries like technology and finance. The military-industrial complex was not about the military anymore. It was about securing global economic dominance. It became a protector of Western economic interests. It needed to ensure that military power could be used to safeguard flow of capital whenever it needed. Militarism was interwoven into the logic of neoliberal capital. It ensured that military and economic hegemony remained interlinked, allowing Western powers to retain their hegemony through the use of economic and military force. As Western global dominance wanes in the face of rising powers such as China or the shifting away of geopolitical influences, the military becomes a tool for maintaining control, and violence is intensified. The army is not only to be used for defense, it's a mechanism for the maintenance of a fragile grip over global power. The projection of military might is portrayed as the defense of democracy, as the defense of human rights, when in reality it's about securing economic interest. Remember Iraq in 2004. It also serves to preserve the Western world's fading imperial reach. The use of force masks the real crisis, a Western economy that has shifted away from industrial production towards financialization, leaving only military production be one of the few reliable pillars of power. This transition from industrial economies to an financialized military economy illustrates the fact that the military-industrial complex has become structural, necessary for Western countries to continue to have geopolitical and economic force. And as their influence erodes, they'll continue to rely on the military in order to enforce their power. In recent decades, we can see a shift in the way combat is being handled. We can see the rise of the private military contractor, basically a mercenary. Companies like Academy or DynCorp are having a more prominent role in the activity of national armies. Logistics or combat are being handled by PMCs, blurring the line between the idea of national defense and corporate interest, reflecting an even bigger trend in neoliberal thought, making it harder to distinguish between government and corporations. The use of private military contractors introduces a troubling lack of oversight and accountability. Unlike national armies, which are usually subject to some kind of government regulation, PMCs work in a gray area, usually out of reach of international law. Their actions are harder to monitor, making it difficult to hold them accountable for war crimes, human rights abuses, and misconduct on the battlefield. This diminished transparency creates a dangerous situation in which profit-driven motives can dictate military action without thinking of ethical or political consequences. Think of Iraq in 2004. The rise of PMCs has fundamentally changed warfare. It has commodified it. It has got it out of the hands of the state, which at least had some mechanism of accountability. This transition to corporate driven warfare is dangerous because it intertwines conflict with profit. The more war there is, the more money a company stands to make, creating an incentive to continue global conflict. And as governments and states continue to rely on PMCs for basic stuff like logistics, security, combat, what's the difference between corporate greed and national interest? We are already seeing wars that are prolonged for the sake of financial profits. Look at the DRC. The political power of the military-industrial complex is immense, and it's one of the reasons why in the latter years the defense budgets of the United States and many other Western nations have ballooned. In the absence of a clear military threat, this corporation push for new weapon system, encourage a hawkish foreign policy, and promote weapon sales to allied nations in order to create a steady revenue stream. There's not much debate on military spending because the military-industrial complex can afford to hire an army of lobbyists in order to influence policymakers and politicians behind closed doors. As a result, there's no democratic control over military spending, and any idea of whatever public good may be disappears. There's only corporate interest. The fusion between neoliberal economics and militarism has created a unique situation, one in which the military-industrial complex is not just a strong lobbying force, it's a fundamental part of most Western countries' economies, creating a self-reinforcing cycle, one in which the need for economic growth drives military spending, and in part military spending generates economic dependency. And this entanglement, economic forces and the military, is an important player in the world right now. It's what shapes the world in this moment. The military-industrial complex doesn't just shape the policies of Western nation states, it also has a profound effect on global inequalities and political stability. One clear example of this is Rwanda in the 90s. During the genocide in Rwanda in 1994, by the way, everyone knew it was a genocide. Everyone knew the stakes. It didn't matter. Gun smugglers, arms dealers provided weapons and prolonged the violence, made it even more bloodier. The weapons came from Europe, came from Israel, came from ex-Soviet states. And this is a clear pattern, because it didn't happen just in Rwanda, it also happened in Yemen, it also happened in Sudan, it also happened in Myanmar, it also happened in Syria. Whenever you look at a humanitarian crisis, a violent crisis, you will see weapon smugglers that are tied to the arms industry. Talking about the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, it is constant battleground. Different groups are fighting for influence, different groups backed by different nation states, by different influences. Why? Because it contains a lot of rare earth minerals. And if that country is in a state of chaos, guess what? The prices are smaller. So the Western states have an incentive to maintain the cycle of violence. Not only that, but they also are okay with the fact that those countries remain dependent on more developed Western nation states to provide security, resources, and so on. This system reinforces the global economic divide. While Western nations profit from the sale of arms, other countries must bear the consequences of the arms sale. The resulting instability, authoritarianism, inequality are not byproduct. They are built in the very fabric of the global arms trade. And this is another cycle that the military-industrial complex creates. Western nation states profit, while the less developed nation states pay the price in stagnation and instability. While the military-industrial complex creates inequalities, creates political instability all around the world, it does that by destroying the environment. So yeah, just think about it, the scale of military operations, the creation of weapons, the logistics to bring the weapons to the fighters, that generates vast amount of waste that nobody takes care of, because they cannot take care of it, because they do not care. And have you ever thought about how much energy do you need in order to produce a helicopter? In order to produce a fleet? Vast amounts. That's called pollution, by the way. And when they figure it out that they don't like them anymore because they are old and they don't like old stuff anymore, old stuff is bad, they just put it on a landfill somewhere and forget about it. Out of sight, out of mind. Can you name me one of the biggest polluters on earth? Let me give you a hint. It's the United States military. It loves oil, it needs oil, it bathes in oil. It must have its oil. It consumes more oil than Sweden. But you know what is funny? They meet in Paris, they meet in Abu Dhabi in order to talk about environmental concerns and what we can do about it. You know what they don't talk about? The military industrial complex? Yeah, that's very fun. There are many other things you can discuss about the military industrial complex. Many other things to critique, to analyze, to discuss. But this has been depressing enough. But you know something? We need to embrace the depressing things. We need to look at the depressing things and maybe they will make us do something. I don't know. Thank you for watching. I'm Daniel Gabriel. This has been a simple concept.